Alright, so we're getting back in the mechanicals of things. And of course, like I said, I wanted to get it up, drop the exhaust down. But first what I'm going to do is I was driving this thing out to get it inspected, and I noticed it was bottoming out in the back. And I haven't changed anything in the suspension back here. And to the point where every time I'd hit like a small, it wasn't even really a bad bump in the road, it would, do like a, and then I'd smell like burnout tires. And of course, these tires here, the ones that are on there right now, and the whole thing I'm waiting on before I get new tires is the wheels, to determine whether or not I need to change the wheels, or if I can change the wheels. And if we look at the production date on these tires, if you know anything about production dates, that is a 2410. That means it was built the 24th week of 2010. So these tires are 10 years old. Now they look the part. Look at the sidewall there. They're cracking along the side. And it was sketchy for me to even drive it. Now as far as tread, they got decent tread. So I've got these two and two more upstairs. They're directional, so I didn't want to run directional tires so I could rotate them. And since I plan on getting all four tires and wheels the same so I can rotate them, again, I'm looking to get the 8-inch by 15-inch wheels, 4x100s. Those are the black ones. I'll picture those here for you. They have the red lip around. They're meant for like circle track cars, V8 cars, stuff like that. But they're 8 inches wide, so that means I'll be able to put a larger or a wider tire at least. And they will spin up quicker because they'll be a smaller diameter than these 17-inch ones. The DOT number on these, let's see, it might be on the other side. Where's the DOT? Let me lay this thing down so I can check it, because I don't even know. I got these on a deal from my job. Well, shoot, these aren't any better. 3909, so the 39th week of 2009. So these are 10 years old, 11 years old. So these will be getting scrapped too. Now these were some like ones that had been up in our rack for some time, and they sold them to me for like $10, $20 a piece just to get them out of here. And at the time I wanted a wider tire, and these were wider when they were sitting off the rim, but of course the width of the rim determines how wide they'll actually be. So when I put these on the rims, they basically suck down in thin wise to the same size as those back there. So it didn't get me anything. It just ran me a little bit taller on the tire up front. So if anything, it made matters worse as far as getting quick off the line acceleration. So what are we trying to do here? We're trying to, once I get this exhaust down and just go through those steps, getting it finalized, getting everything all taken care of with the exhaust, wrap the exhaust, blah blah blah, then like I said, I'm going to take it out with the current fuel system on here, run it, and see during that time if the turbo is truly a laggy type turbo. I haven't really been able to get on it and stay on it to determine anything really, because I haven't been able to tune that fuel curve. So once I do that, I'll see how slow it is off the line. Because remember, we're doing this to get running a little bit larger turbo to get the better off the line response, so I don't have to spin coming off the hole. And I guess if I was running this turbo up front, it wouldn't be a big deal, but it's back here. We have the pressure drop. Whatever lag's going to be, like I said, I haven't got a real good scope on how this thing really responds yet. But once that's done, I'll be able to go in and decide, okay, well, I need the smaller tire. So if I'm going to go with a smaller tire, I want to go ahead and go with those wide rims, 8 by 15. Then I'll be able to buy the tires that are appropriate for it. I have noticed in that size, there's not a whole lot out there, and most of them are DOT drag radials, more or less. But this isn't a 12,000 mile a year car, so I'm not going to be driving it that often, so those tires will still last quite a while. So that's the route I'll go. If I find that the turbo comes on fair enough and it responds just like I'd want it to, then I'll stick with these 17s. I'll refinish them and put new tires on them. So it'd be stupid to go put new tires on it right now. I don't even plan on driving that much at the current moment, but it'd be stupid to put new tires on it only to then buy new wheels and have to get different size tires once I find out that, yeah, I need the smaller diameters. So anyway, that's what we're doing there. For right now today, because the weight of the turbo is what's caused it to now squat down more during bumps, I'm going to raise the back up an inch with these Progress coilovers. I don't remember these things being that bouncy. I don't know. I've rebuilt them. They were leaking. One of them was, so I rebuilt them all. If I still have that video and you have a set of these, I'll go ahead and put a link here in this part of the video so you can reference it. It's just a still photo. It's a good guide, I think, for someone who's never done something like that before. So I'll link it there. But I'm going to raise up the rear an inch, and then in the front I'm going to move it up a half inch, because I found in the past when I was trying to defeat wheel spin issues that when I would raise the back and leave the front there so I could take advantage of, to help keep weight transfer down, the fronts would rub even more than they were on the inner fender liner. And so I took the inner fender liner off, but still I want to get it. I think if I'm coming up in the back, I'll come up in the front some. When I put these fender flares on here, it's not going to matter so much. I'll need to keep them up anyway to keep them from hitting the fender flare when I turn corners and stuff like that. So that's just something that I'm going to have to kind of work through there. But I don't need a stance look. With the lip kit that I'm going to have on here, those fender flares, I'll play with the height to determine where I can put it without rubbing. As the wheel comes out further, of course, as this wheel turns, there's more of a chance for it to hit these lips right here. And of course in the back there. So again, it's going to be something that I'm going to have to play with and see. But we'll make it work. Okay, I like to think it's the welder I have. This is one of those Harbor Freight 90 amp flex wire welders. And man, honestly, it's not something that I hear a lot of welders. I mean, I see people that can weld doing reviews on YouTube for it, and they seem satisfied in at least of what it is for, okay, and what it's supposed to be doing. It's not supposed to be for the professional welder. I actually did this so I could just see. I used to do stick welding when I did a rail car repair when I first got out of the Army, and stick it still has the same premise. You got to ground it and use different types of rod and stuff like that. But some of the welds these stick welders were doing when I worked there were just so beautiful and nice looking, and of course I never could do that. And as a part of commitment, I never was committed to being a great welder because I knew I wasn't going to be there for that long. But anyway, so when it comes to welding with this thing, I think whenever I'm done welding, there's little BBs and stuff stuck all over the pipe. It's ugly as heck. The bead's not that nice, and I'm sure I could use some practice, but I think it comes down to the welder. So I may be investing in a decent welder upcoming soon, because I'd hate to decide that I can't weld only because I was welding with an inferior product. But at any rate, I've tacked these tips on here, and I know right now they look silly on here like that, but that's only because the rear lip's not on there now. Okay, so when the rear lip, which is part of this whole thing, rear lip, side lips, and the front lip for the Wings West kit goes on here, then it will look right. Those tips will be placed correctly. They only stick out a ½ inch from the actual opening. They're centered in the opening. So right now, though, they do look odd. So I've tacked those on there. I'll be driving it over here after I get the exhaust done. When I get the exhaust dropped down, take it over there, let him weld that bung on there for the rear O2. Finish welding a small part on the pipe. I'll come reinstall that after I've wrapped the exhaust, and then I'll drive it over there and let him finish welding these tips on. But right now they're tacked on there pretty strongly. But so yeah, that's what they look like. Like I said, they're going to be shooting out of there just perfectly on there. I've already test fit the rear side. But not to go crazy about tips, but I do like the fact that they're black, and I like the way that they emerge from the rear lip once it's on there. It sets just right. All right, so for today, I've got the exhaust pipe back from the shop. We're gonna wrap the pipe, and I intend to wrap the header, although it's a good looking piece, especially for this application where you have the turbo in the back and you want to keep the exhaust gases flowing quickly. That's what this wrap can help you do. Of course, one of the main benefits is to keep the heat down under the hood. The wrap, you know, it's like putting an insulating blanket on it. It's a ceramic. This is actually the titanium wrap, and the main reason you're going to do this is, well, main reason, heat control, but then also inside the header as the exhaust gas is moving through there, it's at a certain speed, and so the hotter you, and I take that back, not the hotter, when you wrap it, it's going to increase the scavenging or the sucking out, because whenever your engine, it's breathing, right? If you put your hand at the back of your exhaust pipe, you'll feel puff, 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 puff. Well, in between the puff is a reversion. It goes back, it goes back some. That's called reversion. And so what you want to do is when you wrap your exhaust, you're keeping that flow. The times it puffs that way, it moves faster and at a greater volume, so it increases the scavenging, which means scavenge means to pull or take away. When the exhaust valve is open and that exhaust stroke is coming up and it's pulling or scavenging out the exhaust gases, there is some exhaust gas left over after that. And so when you do something like this and you keep the scavenging effect, you increase it, you're actually pulling a more complete scavenge of the exhaust stroke. And so when the air and fuel goes back in on the intake stroke, there's more that you can pull in there. So it does help. They've said that on a dyno you can actually see this helps power. They're saying, you know, if you put it on here and like any other part you'd put on, you'd look for that immediate response as you go on the drive after. You're not going to have that. So obviously this isn't going to give you 15, 20 horsepower, but it may yield a few. And in the world of racing, a few is a lot. So we're going to wrap this. I got 3 rolls. I've already wrapped some. The pipe that goes into the turbo, which is only about 1.5 feet, where I put the V-band clamp at, to the flange at the turbine housing. I've wrapped that section there. I haven't sprayed it yet. I will after I get done. But this portion is going to be to do the pipe, and these are 3 15-foot rolls. I hope it's enough to wrap this pipe all the way. If it's not, I'll have to get some more. This isn't cheap. And then you'll also need to buy these ties here. They're kind of like stainless steel zip ties is what it is. You're going to want to put these on at the start and at the finish. When you're doing these, you're going to want to overlap them 1/4 inch. When you're in bends and stuff like right here, you will have more on the inside than you would on the outside. That's just the nature of the curvature of the pipe, so don't worry about that, but try to keep it as close to over 1/4 inch overlap as you can. Now, we was talking about the hotter the better. That's not true. If you don't keep 1/4 inch or thereabouts on the wraps, then you put, let's say you use a 1/2 inch overlap, or maybe a 3/4 inch overlap. Let's say you figure, okay, the more I wrap it, the better. That's going to keep too much heat inside the pipe, and that will make the pipe brittle and such. So just kind of keep that in mind. One other note I'll tell you, you can, if you feel it helps you, but now DEI, which is the ones that make this type of wrap here, they'll tell you that on your other fiberglass type wraps, like the black ones, you'll need to or want to stick that in like a bucket of water, and you're not leaving it in there for 10 minutes. You're just trying to get it damp is what you're doing. And so what that helps you do is it makes it a little more malleable, so when you wrap the pipes, it's easier. On this kind, and this is the titanium kind, this holds heat better, lasts longer, and if you don't want to, you don't have to wet it before you put it on there. They did say now on this stuff here, this is their high temp silicone coating. Once you're done wrapping it, you spray this onto it. And I think this actually ends up making it look black after it's all said and done. But it's like a sealer is what it is. And particularly with my application, with it being underneath the car, I'm going to do this. Now the question is, do I wrap it after the turbo to the Y pipe back there? Well, the goal is to keep the exhaust moving as quickly as possible. It is still moving after the turbo, obviously. So will I don't know. More than likely not, because at that point it only has probably about 2-3 feet more to get out of the car. So it's, I don't know, but I am going to do the header itself and the piping underneath. So this is the pipe. This is the pipe at the turbo, and as it goes around, here's your gas tank. It goes up, here's the first hanger, it goes up this way. There's my rear O2 bung. Alright, so the tape comes with this little pin in it, right here. And so it'll come with it pinned in here like this, and it's just to keep it from unfolding, but you can actually use that after the fact to do like electrical connectors testing and stuff, probing. That's pretty cool, huh? And it's free. Alright, so the way you start out with it is you take this and you're basically going to fold it at like a 45-degree angle, and then you just take this in and tuck it around. Now you can take some scissors and cut off this frame and stuff like this, so let's do that. Alright, so there's that. And so a lot of them, they'll start wrapping here at the pipe, and then when they get done, and we're not going to get very far with just this, but when they get done, that's when they'll put like the stainless steel clamp on there. But I'm going to put one up here as well. I'm just not going to rely on the tape itself holding it. So you start like this, and then of course you're going to keep it tight, as tight as you can. Remember we talked about 1/4 inch overlap, right? So the first one, so that I can get the back side of this pipe covered, is going to be pretty much even with it. Now the next pull around, see, if you just keep pulling, it'll just unravel. So now I've got both this side of the pipe and that side of the pipe covered. So now as I go back around this way, I'm going to start heading toward the 1/4 inch mark here. And you're just trying to keep tension on that. Now when you do that, obviously, this is going to kind of hang up a little bit. So here I come back around, again, keeping in mind I'm a 1/4 inch, basically. And I'm doing that with the feel of my finger. And see, now I can start landing at a 1/4 inch in. And you can buy different widths of this. Some of them are half width for tighter pipes and stuff like that. But this is like a, shoot, I think what, 1 3/4 or something like that. It's pretty wide. And I'm just, again, I'm going to think about a 1/4 inch in and just try to get like that every time. And I'm going to keep it nice and tight. You see, I can actually, now that it's got a few wraps around, I can really pull down on this pipe, and it ain't going to try to follow me off. So again, use your finger, find that 1/4 inch. And again, nobody's sitting here with a ruler measuring exactly a 1/4 of an inch, so just something close to that is what they're asking you to do. So I'm going to get this part wrapped and I get back with you. And one thing too, if you don't watch the 1/4 inch overlap, not only is it bad for the reasons I mentioned, but man, you're going to run out of tape pretty quick. Because you wouldn't think it takes a whole lot to wrap these out, but remember, you're going around this diameter multiple times, and yeah, it'll get out pretty quick. And just keep pulling down on it. Keep it nice and tight. I'm going to readjust the cart here. Now you will overlap more in corners and stuff like that, so just be advised of that. It's kind of the nature of the beast. All right, so we're out of tape. So there's the end of the roll, and it's taped up. So you just want to keep pressure on that, and we're going to go ahead and apply a clamp here because this roll has ran out. And I don't want to rely on going around this pipe. It's okay if you put more clamps than you need on here, it don't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and put a clamp on here, and I'll get back with it. Okay, so now that I'm here, I'm going to take these. Now you can make a tool. You can actually use like an extension. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to put like a groove in it. So you could use that with like a cutting tool or something like that. But you see that groove right there? I think you can see it. I focused once on there. But that groove is what you're going to stick this through. And then there's a tool that comes with this. A friend of mine let me borrow his. But literally you could get like an extension, a short extension, cut a groove in it, and you've got your tool. Because then you would just take this and you would tighten it up. So I'm going to get this around here. This first one, we'll take a look and see how to do it there. All right, so on some of these, make sure, and it doesn't really matter, but this one here, a single one, isn't going to be enough to reach around and do what it needs to do on here effectively enough. So just like a zip tie, if you were to do that, just take another one, feed it into here. And of course, you go to try to pull it back out and it ain't coming. So now you wrap this around there, put that into there. And it's a matter of pulling them tight, okay? Some of them are different where you use like dikes to where you squeeze them together. It's like on a constant CV joint boot. And then you have these here. So you're just going to tighten this down. And of course I'm doing this at that front area. And then once you get it snug, and that's snug, it still moves. That's where you're going to take that tool and just tighten up. You can do it on just one side there or both. It doesn't matter, just one side should do it. Okay, so I've gotten it tightened up, and then what you can do is if you had one that had maybe that much left over, you could sit there and fold it over and shove it back up in here. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut these off, basically to the point where I can get like a 1/2 inch, and then I'll fold that over and stick it under there. Okay, so I'll take these cutters here, and I'm going to cut off about a 1/2 inch. And then I'll take some needle nose and curl, like get on the very end of it and grip it and then turn into it, rotate it into it so it curls it inside just enough. Pull this out and then just press this up against it. So that's one clamp done, and I'll go ahead and get that other one done. All right, so there's that one. And again, I'm just going to cut the tab by about a 1/2 inch on each side. Take this on the very tip and just roll it under. And then you can beat it down, squash it down, whatever you want to do. Okay, to give you some idea, so from here to here, I used that residual that was left over from having wrapped that other piece of pipe that goes into the turbine flange. And that's probably only about from here to here, that section. Okay, so it's not very long. So that was to here. Now this was an entire 15-foot roll from here to there. And look how much we still got to go. So I have what, one more roll left, I believe. And so I may not make it, so I'll have to get another one. So that gives you some idea. Now, many of you who if you're not going to do a rear mount system, you're not going to need to really wrap this pipe like that, unless you're in a race situation. You want to get every ounce of horsepower you can. This would help. But for my instance, I'm trying to keep the velocity up to the turbo. And so that's why I'm wrapping the whole under pipe. And then, of course, like I said, I'm going to spray it with that sealer once I'm done. So if you're going to wrap the pipe, these are 15-foot rolls. I think they sell them in a 100 foot or 130 foot or something, like much longer rolls than this. And like I said, if you're wrapping a pipe like this that doesn't have a lot, like a header where you've got different lengths of pipe where they come close to each other, you'd want to use the smaller width ones there so that you can get into the area, you know, where the two pipes come close together and finally merge, and then maybe buy another roll to take care of the two pipes wrapping together with the four pipes and all this stuff. So, but in this instance here, just buy the widest roll you can, and that way you can cover as much real estate as you can each wrap. Okay, so as we see, I'm short one small section here. So from here to the end, I'm going to get one more 15-foot roll. I'll wrap the header later, and when I do that, I'll probably get the thinner size and wrap that. But for now, this from here all the way down to there took about 2.5 rolls. Matter of fact, if I'd had a full third roll to start with, I probably could have had that all done. But at any rate, is what it is. I'll get another roll, finish that up, and then of course at that point I'll spray it down with that sealer. And of course, remember the main, yes, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier about why you do stuff like this, it's primarily done for the headers, but in our case, being the rear mount, I want to keep the velocity up. But the main reason that I do this is because this pipe, of course, runs right along the intake charge underneath the car. And so I don't want any heat to leach from the exhaust into the intake. And so the cooler, I keep that air coming up. It'll go, I'm going to show you when I get this up in there. I installed a couple of these, I call them little heat exchanger intercooler tubings. They're about a foot and a half, a little bit less than that, two of them. And they have ribs all over them. So it's like a cooler, basically. And I put that about midway from the turbo to the intercooler. And I did that to help as well, because as air is moving underneath the car, there's a cooling effect happening there. Now you have the cooling effect of just the pipe itself that goes from the discharge of the turbo up to the engine. That length of pipe is going to be radiating off heat as it's going to the front and as air is washing over it as you're driving. So there's an intercooler effect. Second intercooler effect is those two pipes sections that I put in there. They have the ribs on them. It reminds me of what a blower motor resistor has on them, these aluminum ribs. So you've got two sections of that, which adds a second intercooling effect. And of course, air is washing over it underneath the car. The third effect is this being covered keeps heat off of the pipe running next to it. And then of course the final, and kind of goes without saying, the intercooler that the pipe, that the air finally goes into at the front. So you have all those elements contributing to a cooler air charge, which you can make more power at the same boost than you could if you wouldn't implement these actions. So anyway, I'll get the rest of this finished up, get it quote unquote painted, which is covered with that stuff, and we'll get it back up there. And then of course, to help you out, if you go to do this and you want the different sizes, the part number from DEI for this titanium wrap is 010128. And then of course here we got, that's the 1 inch by 15 foot roll. And then the 2 inch by 15 foot roll is 010129. And you know, you can either go to their website, designengineering.com, go to Amazon, type in that part number, make sure you select make sure it's titanium, okay? And again, this isn't something that is supposed to need to be wetted like the black fiberglass ones, because DEI, like I said, does sell the black fiberglass heat treated. They call it like the lava or pumice, whatever they call it. But this again is the titanium. Okay,